a warm welcome once again to the Emerson booth here at Hannover Messe 2025. I'm Karen Helmstead, and this is going to be our energy efficiency panel. And in the interest of energy efficiency, which we've heard is obviously one of the major concerns in times of soaring energy prices, we'll be focusing this discussion on Emerson's digital utility monitoring. So actually using technology to track and analyze the consumption of resources such as electricity, water, or gas. And we'll be discussing how this DUM, digital utility monitoring, is helping manufacturers to reduce costs and reach their environmental targets, and also maintain compliance with a lot of evolving regulation. Very exciting stuff. So to discuss this topic in detail, I'm pleased to be joined by three experts from Emerson. We have Jan Idler over here on my far left. He is IIoT Manufacturing Applications Leader at Emerson. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Karen.
Eugenio Silva is, well, we go way back by now, don't we, Eugenio?
Yes, a couple
here at this stand.
A couple of ones.
Product Manager, Intelligent Automation at Emerson, and it's so good to see you again.
Glad to be here.
Ralf Nötzl is here on my direct left. He is the site director at Emerson here in Laatzen, so a real local expert. And welcome to all of you. Maybe I'll start with just asking you to tell our audience a little briefly about yourself and what you do. We'll start with you, Ralf.
Yeah. My name is Ralf Nötzl. I'm the site and operations director here in Laatzen at the Emerson factory. We are running a factory for basically valve manufacturing, and are also operating a big warehouse where we distribute all products Emerson is selling with shipment same day within Europe. It's a quite significant operation here. We have around about 450 employees here at the site.
Literally right next door.
Yeah, right next door, just
when
across the street.
When you take the train, you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my responsibility to operate this factory. So I'm representing here the customer side, basically, for the product we are discussing about.
Okay, and a very broad customer base that is. Thank you very much for that. Eugenio, give us sort of 30 seconds of life and achievements.
Since the last one that we've been here, we've been launched another, at least 2 or 3 new solutions in the area of monitoring utilities, sustainability, but also environmental compliance. And this time we have new solutions like Energy Saver, we have a leakage locator, we also have the dust collector and monitoring control, which is more in the environmental side. And we are obviously advancing with our Energy Manager solution, which this time is the final first official release.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to be talking about today in detail, but let's go over to Jan Idler and just hear a little bit about yourself and what you're responsible for, and then we can dive into all of our questions.
Yeah, so I'm Jan Edler, and I'm here in Emerson with the Intelligent Automation team, and my responsibility is to drive our software solutions, our smart solutions, into our Emerson factories globally. So I'm globally in contact with all Emerson factories when it comes to energy monitoring, compressed air monitoring, and also solutions for the manufacturing processes.
Okay, thanks very much for that. And I think we'll kick off the discussion because you mentioned, or we talked about the regulatory compliance. Huge issue in tandem with sustainability. So Jan, maybe over to you, because evolving emissions regulations and all of those corporate ESG goals that everybody is having to constantly sort of revise because of evolving regulation. Those are driving the need really for advanced utility and resource monitoring. So how are those factors actually influencing the adoption of the smart utility solutions that you can offer?
Yeah, I really think these regulations are really pushing us all, Emerson and all the other factories globally, because this CBAM that's now coming from the EU, that's a huge theme. We need to send over the data from our materials that we used, from the energy we consumed, how much CO2 is in our products. And that is only possible if we have the right data for it and the right sources that we can claim. So it's a huge topic. And there are more and more initiatives coming up also for other countries. So I think the EU is leading all these carbon dioxide talks. And we really need to adapt. And we need the data now also from our production, from our energy consumption in our plants, to really have data available to fill these tax regulations which needs to be paid. And that's coming up for all Emerson facilities, and we all feel it. And we should now start with investing in energy monitoring and releasing a better insights in our energy needs.
And these monitoring solutions are real-time monitoring solutions, right, Eugenio? So what are some of the practical challenges that manufacturers are facing in actually implementing them for the first time, considering that, you know, they can...
Of course, it would be much easier to start with what you call greenfield, because then you put greenfield plants, because of course then you would start with state-of-the-art and then have a standardized solution. But it's definitely not the case. The majority of our customer facilities are legacy. They have legacy equipment. They have production lines that are there for many years. Systems that are result of acquisitions. So therefore, they just inherit, and so therefore
they haven't had control over what's there in the first place.
This very diverse kind of install base is one of the issues to have centralized real-time data collection. Sometimes they need to integrate new sensors, new instrumentations, but the solutions are not open to readily integrate such a new equipment. There's another thing that they capture some data, but it's still siloed in databases, right? So therefore, when they want to integrate all this, it's not in real time. It's just past data. The validation, some of the data quality is also very questionable, because some sites, they have higher quality, some other sites not. But I think one of the aspects that we also see is the personnel is not trained also to understand how to take actionable insights and do something about it.
So that's getting back to the skills gap and labor issues that we talked about in the earlier panels. We might get to that a little bit later on, but one of the things that came up in the panels earlier this morning was also cost and energy price volatility, which we know everybody is experiencing. That's a huge concern for manufacturers as going forward and trying to keep business in Europe. How can these real-time monitoring solutions and monitoring of utilities like compressed air or water, for instance, help to mitigate the fluctuations that clients are faced with?
Okay, the first thing that you need to think about is that in order to know where you can address, it has to be visible to you. So therefore, it's not just about having real time, but having completely visibility of, for example, your energy intensive assets. You need to know where they are and why they are consuming energy even with they are in idle state, okay? So that's one of these things. We call this granular level because sometimes they know the total costs of utilities and energy, but they don't know down to a point where they can do something about it, okay? And of course, we always ask our customers, what are your low-hanging fruits?
The low-hanging fruits, of course.
Yeah, and we can discuss a lot what could be.
What you can consider low-hanging fruit. Yeah. That's, of course, the first steps to take. We'll talk about that when we get to the end. But let's talk about a little bit more about seamless data integration was something that obviously was mentioned earlier this morning. And across multiple production lines, these are some of the challenges that obviously with legacy or inherited systems that manufacturers are dealing with. How can they achieve this kind of seamless data integration to enable that real-time energy and utility monitoring?
You really need to focus on standardized products that we as Emerson sell as the Energy Manager or CAM, that we deploy on the edge a good data aggregation that is seamless and that can afterwards also be distributed over standard protocols like OPC-UA, MQTT or others on the market. And then if you reach that, you can connect or interconnect over different lines, over different factories and seamless integrate. So our floor-to-cloud approach really fosters this solution and this adaptation, that we really go from the small line up to the factory floor and maybe even beyond to connect the factories interdimensional, I would say. You can also see on our global dashboard there that we have a lot of connected factories globally which share the data on our global servers.
Maybe I can get you to just summarize the floor-to-cloud approach for anybody who's out here at the booth that isn't familiar with it, we're going to be talking more about that, obviously, for every panel, but it always bears repeating.
Yeah, so our float cloud approach is that we really start from the sensor, gathering the data over the PLC, over edge devices, and then are able to also store that in the cloud or on cloud services. So that it's all Emerson, and we have the full way from floor to cloud, from sensor to the cloud with the data.
So practical steps that manufacturers can take, for instance, to implement this real-time monitoring.
I think first of all is to get to know their install base, how it is, and then decide whether they are going to extend, if that is future-proof. If it's not, just try to standardize an approach that is completely open to collect the data, to connect to additional instrumentation. Also, to think about that if the utilities that you're talking about are going to be all, and not just one, is there any concept that you can unify all the utilities in one single platform? And then, of course, take care who is going to take advantage of that. Is the people that operate in the plant, or just the energy managers, or you just like to bring the data above to have a kind of supervision or a Power BI kind of dashboard? So these are the question marks that you have. And then, of course, the first initiatives should be find the low-hanging fruits, which are the points where you're losing, wasting energy, the points where your machines or production lines are peaking at the same time, so therefore you could have surcharge because of that. And there are things like this that I think should be in the consideration before you say, let's go for that. And one thing that I like to pinpoint here is, when you select a solution, besides to be modular, design, and flexible, future-proof, are they scalable? Because even if you start small with a proof of concept, you still have to think from day one, if I get this right, can you scale this up without major engineering requirement costs? Okay, is that easy for my people to understand the, for example, visual insights that they get out of it? So I think these are important aspects.
Energy price volatility, obviously a huge issue here in Germany, and you're based here in Laatzen, Ralph. How can manufacturers perhaps use their energy procurement strategies to manage price volatility together as in concert with this real-time monitoring?
Yeah, the real-time monitoring provides us the data and makes us to understand really the profile or the load profile we have in power consumption. And this helps us basically in two ways. On the one hand, we want to use more and more renewable energies, photovoltaic and wind energy, which are not available all the time. So we can adjust basically the profile to our demand. And of course, it's also helping us to negotiate supply agreements with the power companies and make a good deal with them, exactly meeting our requirements we have in terms of power consumption and the profile over the day.
So it's very agile energy procurement management, is it?
It is, yes. It is, yeah. So it's agile, and it also allows us to actively manage it. So we can, in worst case, we can postpone processes from a manufacturing perspective to a time where the power is better available.
Exactly.
And well, our factory is not really a factory having a lot of energy-intensive processes. But if you run a factory with very energy-intensive processes, it's really worth doing that.
That's absolutely going to make sense. Yeah. Thanks very much for that. Utility wastage, which of course is sort of our next topic that we want to address, can be huge depending on the manufacturing processes that we're talking about. Jan, especially in things like compressed air systems, we heard in the last panel with Amit, that's a major concern. How can solutions such as the compressed air manager from Emerson then help facilities to actually eliminate those kinds of leakages?
Yeah, we had the first big implementation in Sissach in Switzerland, and that was a huge effect on the whole site there, because they wanted to invest in a new compressor, but by installing the compressed air manager and finding their leakage and also identifying their machines with high consumptions, they could postpone the invest, so they could really run on their old compressor and even enhance their manufacturing capabilities. It was a huge saving for them. And on the other side, they also saw with the compressed air manager on their production line that they had short-term pressure drops on their machines. So they really found, okay, we should just build bigger pipes to that process, that we have enough air available for our processes, and they could really reduce the cycle times on their machines. So they even had more output on them. So if you have data available, it always gives you a possibility to increase your efficiency, to increase your performance, and to have a better revenue at the end, if you see that.
It really is. Go ahead, Eugenio.
No, it's very interesting to see how things are connected, because some customers are able to work with a compressor that is 20% lower capacity, but that means also they are going to use less electricity, because if you use 30% of electricity to generate compressed air, if you utilize a lower capacity, means also additional savings. So sometimes our customers don't see the interconnectedness.
Basically leveling out here, this loss is a gain somewhere else.
Yeah.
Ralph, just give us an overview of why more and more Emerson facilities are monitoring their consumption.
Well, we have implemented the monitoring system at pilot sites, and all the sites, all the manufacturing sites of Emerson in Europe are actually very well connected. So we exchange a lot about experiences we have, and others are seeing what we are doing in some sites and how we benefit from monitoring the energy and other utilities.
So if I understand correctly, you've got pilot sites that are doing the monitoring, but the data collection is happening across the board.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And yeah, we see how beneficial it could be. We see what cost we could really save from an operational perspective. And then we want to scale it up in the European factories.
And what other, we've been talking about compressed air, but what other utilities are you looking at specifically?
Compressed air, of course, is the most expensive form of energy, but it's also power, of course. But we are also discussing other utilities you have. Basically, all operations have also water. Water is also a very valuable resource. But it could also be, depending on the operations you have, it could be any other valuable utility you have in your manufacturing environment.
And there are monitoring solutions for all of these?
Yeah. When we talk about compressed air, the solutions are very similar if you use natural gas or hydrogen or any other process gas maybe. It depends what kind of operations you have.
Let's touch on things like pressures in the supply chain and the efficiency gains that are needed sometimes to sort of be in sync with partners along the chain, with rising material costs, Jan, and all of the disruptions, for instance, that have become pretty much commonplace since the pandemic. They really haven't necessarily stopped. Give us an idea of how comprehensive utility monitoring can actually help stay competitive in that extremely uncertain environment.
Yeah, I think in general, Ralph knows it best. You always have to make your processes better, more stable, more efficient. You need efficiency gains. And if you don't have any data, you cannot do something. Okay, Sir Kelvin said once, so you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So if we really want to improve something, we need to measure something. And if we get more competitive by having optimized processes, by having a good understanding of our energy consumption, by always fostering visualizations and searching for the next step we could take to even be more efficient, then we can stay ahead of the competitors and of all our other markets.
So you can't improve if you can't measure. That brings us, of course, to future-proofing of industrial operations, because everything really revolves around being able to predict and have stability and security going forward. looking ahead, Eugenio, how can sort of out of the box or scalable energy and utility monitoring solutions enable facilities like here in Latson, but also the sort of the heavy industry that we're talking about, to adapt to the future energy challenges that we know are still coming at us?
Okay. When you select where you're going to do a proof of concept, sometimes you talk about a lighthouse project because you want to use this to demonstrate really you have the ability to execute such kind of solution. Then, of course, it's better to have an idea of the whole install base, not just the particular site. Because when you propose a solution, then might be that, I need a universal connector that gets the data, doesn't matter if it's a new sensor or install base. That could be one way. The other way you could, no, I want to out of the box completely just connect my sensor there. It should work in minutes. If that is the case, then it's better to know in advance what you're talking about. So this is one thing. And when you talk about flexibility and scalability, is that can we grow large but starting small, and that is viable? Because sometimes it costs a lot to start. But if you can bring down especially the non-engineering recurring costs, then you can start very small. You still not prove your ROI yet, but prove that you can scale very quick and at very cost effective. Because other alternative could be, okay, I want to have engineering project where I want a highly customized solution. So therefore, if you don't need customization, if you can avoid engineering, then go with standardized, modular, very scalable solutions, which is the ones that we are showing here.
You're showing them, and I mean, Emerson is also using its own solutions, the Energy Manager and the Compressed Air Manager, at many of its facilities, sometimes I think also in concert. Tell us about the benefits that are being achieved with that.
It's always huge, even if you see small installations like Ashflat. So we just put in Ashflat 2 power meters. Okay, but they could really decrease the energy consumption by more than 20%. Because if you have the live data available and have a look on it, and you understand if I switch that machine on and it comes on top, and I see that, you can really decide.
Comes back to this issue of visibility, but also just to awareness of the entire team. Huh?
Sure, you need to include them. You need to have meetings, regular meetings, come together, speak about the data, include it in your normal processes, that people really see the data, and there's always somebody, what is that spike? Why is that there? I once shared it with Mike Trainer from our sustainability team, and he immediately recognized that the lights were switched on in the evening in Latson, and why is that the case, for example? So there will always be questions and challenges that you will face, and people seeing, can we not save some more money there or there? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't depend how big you start and how elaborate you start in your facility. Just start, build in 1-2 meters or whatever, see the first points, and then go deeper, then dive deeper.
Something that, Eugenio, you have another comment?
Sometimes even shifting for 1 hour later a process line avoids the surcharge of peaks. So these are the things that probably you don't start when you lay out your factory.
Right.
You just follow the standard.
Yeah.
But these are the kind of insights that only if you have a data in real time and you can quickly visualize, can give you that kind of insights.
Something comes back to me that Amit said in the last panel, talked about how we're basically developing a new relationship with data. And that seems to sort of very much apply here as well, because I mean, once you've got those numbers, then you can actually decide what to do with them. But if you're unaware of what those discrepancies are. That's
a very interesting insight, but I think the relationship should be with the actionable insights.
Okay.
Because we're not going to have a data analysts or specialists every time, but we have to have people that can use the right interpretation of the data to turn into actions.
Exactly.
And I think these are the kind of champions that we want to have.
I can give one more example for Ralph's site in Latson, for example. So you normally in Germany, you pay for the peak demand, and that's a surcharge you have to pay every month. So it's the biggest value per year for the 15 minutes you used your energy. And when we had the first look on our energy graphs, we saw that on 12 o'clock, we had a very high spike in there. And we didn't know why.
Kitchen, right? It was a kitchen.
The kitchen was also there, but I think that's needed. That's the energy we must take. But we also did we have 3 compressors. And we make a test run always at noon, 12 o'clock with all 3 compressors, that we have the reserve if somebody fails of them. And that test run was in the highest demanding hour. So we have the full 50K on top for the energy demand. And then we shifted it for sure to the 6-hour part where nobody is there, very low consumption.
Yeah, very low consumption. Okay, so that makes a huge difference, obviously.
There is one more story. We are working a project with a meat packing facility. They have 10 different facilities in the Scans area. And interesting that they have a single meter just in the utility entry point. So they trust very much that the energy provider tells them how much energy they have to hire the contract. And then when you start putting a solution with real data, they could realize, oh, I could have 20% less energy in my contract. Therefore, they are just paying because they are afraid that if they peak the energy, they are going to be more costly for them. So that means now they need to see the reality by assessing how much exactly each of these packing lines are going to spend, even when they go to very high production cycles, right? But they take the approach to be, okay, to be secure here, it's better to work 20% above my real capacity.
Those are really great examples and really sort of help people to see just sort of how simple it can be to sometimes actually just deduce where wastage is happening and where stuff can be optimized. Ralph, we talked earlier about changes in regulation, which are something that are always needing to be kept in mind. How can manufacturers prepare for possible future changes? And sustainability mandates, for instance, obviously in Europe, we have a lot of balls on the court by building this kind of flexibility and adaptability into their monitoring and reporting systems.
Yeah, actually, if you have access to the data, it's the first step. So you can prepare for upcoming regulations. Of course, we as a company, we follow which regulations will potentially come in the next years. And if we recognize that there are new parameters to record, then we will try to establish a system for recording these parameters to at least find a baseline and then do optimization from the baseline.
And your experience is coming in very handy for new sort of manufacturers embarking on these systems. Eugenio, how can anyone interested in actually getting started in real-time digital monitoring actually get started? You mentioned the low-hanging fruits. Tell us what the practical steps would be to begin.
Yeah, like I said, the first thing is to get to know why you're doing this. And we ask our customers to think about, okay, you're always looking to save at the end costs, but is somehow tied already with your operational efficiency, because either going to be fixed costs or variable costs. So the energy or any kind of utility needs to be very clear the potential that we could start with. We're talking about 10%, maybe. 10% is enough to prove that you should go in that direction. Or you should think about modernizing maybe some of your equipment. Or it might be that just shifting your production line already gives you the ability to show that you can do that. So therefore, before investing in a kind of a company-wide solution, try to figure out where you're going to start and if you can sustain that. Because once you get the benefits, can you scale and still demonstrate much stronger return on investment? Okay? Because otherwise, it becomes like a small proof of concept, and then it's going to die there. even if you prove that the technology is right, is feasible, but you not prove that you're able to scale up in your organization, because probably it's not a C-level initiative. Probably your people are not educated enough to take advantage of the insights that you get. So this, we try to go a little bit holistic, because we're not just interested to put one more solution. We want the customers to succeed using the solutions, is to become a great reference for us.
And with regard to that skills gap that keeps sort of coming up in all of these different situations, what advice would you have for manufacturers to sort of proactively tackle that issue?
Identify if your solution provider or any product vendor is able also to cover some of the good training. Think that if they have the ability to do a proof of concept and demonstrate inside of your company the benefits of it, okay?
Okay.
And if you have the ability to show the results in a very transparent way. If it works or not, it's interesting the feedback, right?
Thanks very much for that. I do have
Anything
a final question for all of you. Did you want to add something to that, Ralph? Or,
Yeah.
sorry, Jan?
I could only add that we want to build solutions that are as easy as possible to implement, that you don't need the skilled workforce. The dashboards come together automatically. And the implementation for sure is some electrical work. You will not cover that somewhere different, but the full integration way, which normally needs a lot of insights into IT, into technology, into dashboarding and everything, that we want to keep out of the process, and that's why we are standardizing everything. It is like plug and play. You plug it there and
Right.
it works, and you get the dashboard.
To achieve really simplified systems. Thanks for that. A final question that I would have for all of you, and I'll start with you, Ralph, is that, you know, Emerson's experience is here and obviously available to all of the colleagues and clients and customers coming and visiting the booth here at the Hanover Messe. But based on that experience in improving and achieving sustainability and digitalizing all these shop floors, how would you advise your customers to be facing the next, let's say, 10 to 15 years?
Well, I think we all operation will take more data from the shop floor. And I think the focus in the next 10 years will be really on analyzing these data. We have far more possibilities today with artificial intelligence, also with the use of artificial intelligence. We don't necessarily need data experts to have on site to really take advantage out of the data with artificial intelligence, and I think this will be the future. So we will have automatic data recording, uploading in it somewhere in the cloud, and also automatic analyzing and giving some feedback to somebody who has to decide how to proceed. And I think this will be the future.
How are you advising your customers, Jan?
Definitely start small, but start now, and then scale it if needed. Scale it to your needs, and then you are good to go. Just start.
It's like investing.
Yes, let's say if they're starving for good data, of course we should provide good data. But sometimes it's more about how they use what they have. And also our solutions is about unlocking little by little the potential that is in every site. Sometimes the potential is just to find the losses. Sometimes the potential is how to move around your production line. Sometimes it's just to give you a hint that you're paying surcharge because you're not paying attention where they peak. So giving the ideas where this could be gained and expanded and scaled. So give them chances that, okay, they're promising here. It might be that in every single site you're going to find the same thing. When you multiply that, it's a big thing. And another thing, you need to obviously have the champions of the programs well above. You cannot just rely on somebody that wants to do a project and then after that you expect it is going to be scale up everywhere. No. Because that's not the intentional part of the business. It's just an experience.
So you're talking about C-suite buy-in to all of
Yeah.
these, improvements.
Yeah.
Okay. Which
So,
I'm
for example, that's why we address operational efficiency, not just the energy efficiency, because operational efficiency is going to relate to some KPIs that definitely they need to be aligned with. And you're just going to provide another way to help them to accelerate towards to that target. So that's why we try to kind of bring a balance between technical feasibility and economic viability based on the KPIs that our customers want to follow.
Which comes back to aligning the business case, creating the business case for sustainability, which is very clearly there. Yeah. Thank you very much. Digital utility monitoring to make massive and sometimes unexpected and surprising gains in energy efficiency in factories, on sites all across Europe and around the world. Thank you very much for joining us for all of this expertise, and these are the guys to talk to for anyone out here in the audience who wants to know more about real-time monitoring of resource consumption. And I'd like to thank Jan Edler, Eugenio Silva, and Ralf Nötzel. Thanks very much to the three of you for being here. And for all of our spectators and people here, feel free to approach any of the other Emerson colleagues to ask your questions about many of the demos going on here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for this one.